We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Welcome back, friends. I'm so happy to have you here. I hope that if you tuned into today's episode, it's because you want to kind of gain back some of the freedom in your time, in your schedule, and not feel so overwhelmed all the time. Like, how am I possibly going to get everything done? Because listen, we can hear all of these like meme type phrases like, we have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. But you know what we don't have, guys? Most of us, we don't have people that are helping watch our kids and clean our house and cook us food and drive us places so we could work in the car and all of the things that come with being a celebrity. Now, they have their own problems too. I don't believe in this whole celebrities have nothing to complain about type of a thing. We're all human beings and mental health is real, but that is not what we're talking about today. I'm getting on a side tangent note about Beyonce and her mental health. How did we get here? Hi. Welcome back to the Paring Down podcast. So today I'm going to be sharing with you something that I do that has really, really helped me feel less overwhelmed when it comes to how I handle all the things I have to do in life, right? I'm a mom of 3. I work part-time. I have my Paring Down business and podcast and life, right? I'm a military wife. I don't live near family. There's a lot going on. And as much as I'd like to say that I've pared down my obligations and my interests so deeply that I have all of this free margin in my schedule, that's just not the case. I do have margin. I do make sure I have margin because I implement this time blocking that I'm going to talk about today. But, life is busy at certain periods of life more than others, and it is important to still be intentional with our time, but that doesn't mean that we're going to have like an overabundance of free time where we're like, I can easily get everything done that I need to get done. I don't actually know. I mean, I know very few people who live that kind of a life. That was actually me before kids. Not going to lie to you. I had the dream life. I was not working full time. I was married. My husband was gone half the year, but I was just doing my blog and working part-time, and people were like, don't you get bored? And I was like, no, I'm really good at having free time. Like, I love it. I look at these like movies like Downton Abbey or Bridgerton, and people are like, I can never be someone who, as a woman, like that doesn't work. And I was like, I could. I'm just kidding. I like to do more than sit around, considering how much I'm constantly creating and doing new things like writing a book or, creating the podcast or whatever. So I say that in jest, but also I was really good at being fun employed for a while there before we had kids. Anyway, not the point. The point is that very few of us have that luxury to sit around like it's 1812 and we live in a castle. So today we're going to be talking about how to time block and what that looks like. Hopefully it's not going to be a super long episode. I say that, but I honestly never know how long these are going to go because I am me. So I'm going to walk you through how I manage my time. Like I was saying, we often hear there aren't enough hours in the day. And really the key piece here is to pare down your schedule. Like I just said, that I haven't done to the point of not having anything to do, but I have done to the point where I can maintain my sanity and actually do have the time to do what I need to do and still rest and do things that are fun for me. So paring down your schedule really means taking a look at your core values. What is most important to you? Your family is probably a big one. For me, my faith also comes into that. So how does that show up in my schedule? Having fun, connecting with my husband, core values. And you can't have so many core values that you're like, but then I have to do it all, right? No, like really sit down and you can kind of evaluate those core values more easily if you use a guide. So I have a free Know Your Why worksheet, and that's about knowing your why behind decluttering and paring down your life. Sorry if you just heard my kids screaming. They are with the babysitter right now. God bless her. I finally hired a sitter on Fridays for the summer because I was losing my mind. because my schedule and because, 3 kids, ages 3, 4, and 6. I mean, as I listen to what my babysitter's going through right now, it actually really clarifies why I feel like I'm constantly losing my mind. Like, moms out there, I hear you. Maybe just sit in another room and listen to your kids with the babysitter, and then you won't be so hard on yourself. That's what I'm going through currently. Anywho, back to what I was saying. So, core values, you could get my free Know Your Why worksheet. And in that, I kind of break down how you can write out and figure out your own core values. So, that would be something really powerful to do when it comes to looking at your schedule. And then, just big picture, when you're paring down your life and your schedule, just don't do things the way the rest of the world does them. I think that's my biggest message here, is to get off of autopilot, because autopilot means that you're not going to be focusing on the things that actually matter to you and living an intentional life. You're just kind of doing what everyone else does. Everyone else puts their 3-year-old in ballet class. Everyone else does this on Sundays. Everyone else, goes on this kind of a vacation, or they add all of these different things to their schedules and volunteer at this type of an event or whatever. And you don't have to do it the way the rest of the world does it. You just really, really don't. Nor do you have to take it to a different extreme and go, homestead and homeschool and all of that. You can do that. Sure. If that calls to you, do that. But just sit back and figure out what does my life feel like, and how can I focus my time on the things that matter most to me, instead of just trying to squeeze in what matters most to me in between all of these different things that I've signed up to do. A big one here too that you're going to hear about today is that really knowing your limits and how much you can take on in your schedule is paramount with intentionality. So for me, for example, I think I've shared this on here before, but anyways, I have PMDD, which is something that affects women who basically, there's a stage of our cycle. It's usually 2 weeks. Some people it's just 1 week. Some people it's 3. Mine is usually actually 2.5 to 3 weeks. So it's like literally 3/4 of my life, where I am very high stressed. I feel like I'm a different person. Like, I can't process things the same way. I am overstimulated. My patience is kaput. My emotions and my hormones are just all over the place. Almost like I'm pregnant, but I'm not. I'm definitely not. And so with this PMDD, it makes it a lot harder for me to have energy during those bad weeks. So I recognize that because that's 3/4 of my life, or at least half of my life, that I'm in one of these cycle stages that's really, really hard. I cannot commit to as much. And I need to be careful. I still struggle with this, with committing to things while I'm in a good week, because when I'm in a good week where my body's doing what it's supposed to do and being normal, I am really hardworking. I'm really excited to give and to be involved and be around humans. And the other 2 to 3 weeks of the month, I can barely get out of bed. And so I have to not schedule things. I have to know myself and know this isn't going to feel good for me in 2 or 3 weeks. And that doesn't mean I just stay in bed all day. I'm fortunate that I don't struggle with depression, but PMDD shows up in a really extreme way for me. And the more stressed I am, the more I spiral, and my patience and all of that kind of goes down the drain. And I can get really angry and really just upset really easily. So anywho, the point is also know yourself, know your own limits, and schedule your life accordingly with as much margin as you need to be okay. It's fine. It's fine that I don't do as many things as maybe some other moms that I know because of my PMDD. Anywho, even once we've pared it all down, been intentional, been kind to ourselves, it can still feel like a lot to do. So that's what we're talking about today with time blocking, because this is what helps me stay on track even when I'm in those really bad weeks where I feel overwhelmed. So this is not going to be a cleaning schedule. We're not talking about how to time block in terms of cleaning your house and keeping your house tidy. At some point, I might bring in someone who specializes in cleaning schedules, but today I'm just talking about time blocking in general as a form of paring down your schedule and your life and your planner and your calendar to make it work for you, so that you feel like you're showing up in this one life we have to live in a way that you're proud of, accomplishing the things you want to accomplish, doing the things that you have to do that are necessary to do, and also making sure that you're doing so in a way that leaves plenty of room for rest and restoration, which we as humans need. And so I don't want you to get burned out. And time blocking really allows us to kind of to step back, see how am I spending my time, and ensure that we don't reach that level of burnout. Now, time blocking might sound really overwhelming to some people. I shared about it in a masterclass I am teaching, and I think I explained it in a way that really overwhelmed some people. So I'm going to try and learn from my mistake in the masterclass and explain it in a way that sounds way less scary here today. I am someone who loves structure, by the way. I know that that's not everyone. So it's okay if you don't operate the same way I do. I do believe that time blocking can be a really helpful tool, even if you're not a super structured person, but also be kind to yourself and realize, hey, this might not be the correct tool for me. And that is okay too. Diving in, what is time blocking? So, time blocking is a time management method where you basically divide your day into different blocks of time, and each block is dedicated to a specific task or group of tasks. So, when we time block for a whole week, we look at our schedule for the whole week, time block each day what we're going to be doing during those hours. We are way less likely to get distracted by things that don't matter, like scrolling on our phones, because, we know how we want to spend our hours. And when we know that and we have them written down, we don't have to remember what we should be doing and all that mental space of trying to figure it out or finding the motivation to do it. It's just written down for us. And for me, that's like a huge lift off the mental load. It's like, I know what I want to do. I know when I'm doing it. All I have to do is open my little calendar and my calendar will tell me what to do right now. That I really enjoy that. Time blocking is also valuable in that you're not letting yourself be on call 24/7 to things like email or, for me, answering DMs or engaging on Instagram to grow my account or anything you feel obligated to fit into these tiny pockets throughout your day. When I first started my part-time job and I just had to work 12 hours a week, or at the time, I think it was 10. And I was just trying to fit it in, right? And so I was stressed out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to, answer just and get 5 minutes in here when I'm in the car waiting for my son at school or whatever, right? And it feels really stressed. But time blocking, it's so valuable to be able to just say, nope, I'm going to work for these 2 hours and then I'm not going to work, right? And so your brain doesn't feel like it's constantly trying to keep up with something. It feels really exhausting. You have these ticking time bombs that you need to respond to right now. It is just so much more efficient to say, I'm going to check my email from 9 to 10 a.m. every day, rather than picking up your phone every time you see a notification, which will, break your concentration on another task that you're doing or end up pulling you into something you don't have time to focus in on at the moment. Or, we all done it too, where you just pick up your phone to do one thing and then it's built to distract you. So with other apps or time-sucking habits on social media or whatever, right? So to focus on time blocking is huge. It can be really freeing from that constant response to notifications and requests. And like I mentioned earlier, you will also ensure that you have the necessary margin when you leave breaks in these time blocks. You're going to see it written out in front of you and you're like, oh, I'm a human, not a robot. I actually don't have the time to do all of these different things. And that gives you more space and more clarity as to what you need to pare down potentially. All right, so I'm going to dive into how I do it. So for me, it's easier to just block out periods of time that I'm not responsible for my kids. So when I am not with my children, whether they're at school or we have childcare or whatever. So when I'm with them, instead of time blocking, I just have a checklist that I check off when I can. So that's kind of what my summer looks like right now. For me, I don't schedule important things I need to accomplish for work when I'm with the kids. And I know that's not a luxury everybody has. There are some people that work from home and they have their kids with them and they have to get their work done, obviously. And that's really, really, really hard. For me, I am able to get childcare while I'm working and I don't blur those lines. If I have my kids with me, I am not working, because not only do I feel like I can't work at the caliber I would need to, but I don't want my kids to see me on my screens all the time and that kind of thing. So I've made it a point to make sure that I am not working when I have my children. Again, that's a privilege. So my time blocking is really done during the hours I don't have my kids. Your time blocking could look very different. Maybe you want to use it to time block out when you're going to do housework, even when your kids are around. Great. Maybe you want to use it more specifically within your job. You'll hear that I use it for my job, but as a big picture, when am I getting my hours in for my part-time job? Not what am I doing for my job that day? But maybe you want to use time blocking for that. Or maybe you want to use it to time block your evenings. That's the time that you have and you function really well. And so you're like, okay, once the kids are in bed, I have from 7:30 until 10 p.m. where I can be productive and I want to time block that out. So use this however you want to. I just like to use it for those precious hours that I have childcare during the day, because for me, evenings are when I'm really shutting down. And so I reserve those for rest. So the point is this time blocking is going to be a reflection of me and my schedule. And the hope is that you can take from it what would work for you and how you would use time blocking. I personally use a physical planner. So I use one called So Typical Me. I will link it in the show notes. There's like a vertical, you can make So Typical Me calendars as personalized as you want. That's why I like them. You literally get to go through and design the interior of your planner. So I do a vertical thing where they have all the hours listed out of the day vertically, right? And so that helps me with time blocking. There's also like a meal planning thing at the bottom and a checklist on mine that's very helpful. You can also use the calendar in your phone to time block, especially because it uses different colors for certain things. I haven't gotten that intense with my phone calendar. I mean, I use it for obligations, like if I have somewhere I need to be or an appointment or an interview on my calendar or whatever, I have that. But in terms of time blocking, I don't use it as much as I use a physical planner, but that could be different for what you prefer. So the first thing I do, I start with brain dumping. So brain dumping is when you write down all the things that you know you need to get done. So all the things that are just hanging over your head. So for me, I know I need to get 12 hours of work done for my part-time job. I work on the social media team for a mental health expert online. So I have 12 hours I need to do that. So I write that down, 12 hours for Tracy. I write down my podcast that I need to do for the week. So it might be doing an interview and then editing that interview. It might be planning out my solo episode and then recording that episode, whatever I need to do for the podcast that week in order to stay on top of things. I write that down. I write down maybe upcoming projects, things that I just like are on my mind that are hanging over my head that I want to do, right? I want to get together my newsletter for my email list. I want to get together a book proposal for the new book that I want to write. Maybe I'm putting together a new digital resource or a Bible study or something like that. So I just write all these things down. I write down creating reels because I release 6 to 7 reels a week. So that takes time to create and make those. I also want to work out every week, 3 times a week. I plan a lesson for a small group that I lead on Wednesday nights for church. And then I write down any big errands or commitments I have that I need to get done that week. And then also just all the random tasks that take up brain space in my head. So I need to buy a wedding gift for my cousin or return a phone call to somebody that I've been putting off or schedule a doctor's appointment, pay tuition for the kids' school that month because they don't do auto pay. It's like so makes my brain want to explode. But anyway, so those are some examples, right? So that's brain dumping. It's all of it in one place in just this big pile of no wonder I'm so tired, right? So once I brain dump, I ask myself, what can I do with the kids around and what can I do not with the kids around? Because that tells me what I need to time block out, what needs to become part of the time block, and what needs to become part of the checklist. So what I can do with my kids around goes onto a checklist. This is all my household tasks. I don't even make a checklist for those because I know at this point in my home management what I need to do, like vacuum and clean certain things and whatever. If there's certain like off the beaten path type things I need to do, like maybe something exploded in our microwave and I just really need to get to it, I'll write down something specific like that. Or like I remember my toddler like peed on his carpet and I cleaned it the best I could, but I probably need to like deep clean that carpet, right? Like I write those ones down. But as a general rule of thumb, I don't write down laundry and dishes and all that because that's kind of a given. So what can I do with kids around? All household tasks. I can call and make a doctor's appointment or buy a wedding gift. Those kinds of things don't take a whole lot of mental gymnastics, nor are they like things that I have to get done immediately, right? Like, or else someone else is going to be like put out. So I put those on a checklist. I can even take my kids to the grocery store. I try not to these days with 3 kids. I used to love going with just like 1 kid or even 2, but 3 is my limit. I prefer not to take all 3 of them, but I can take, a kid to the grocery store. So those are things I can do with the kids around. What can I not do with the kids around? That's everything I'm going to time block out. So that's all things work for my part-time job. That's all things for the podcast and working out. I cannot do those things personally with the kids around. So that's what I'll be time blocking out. And I look at the whole week to start. Instead of blocking day by day and going Monday, 9 to 10 a.m. do this, 10 to 11 do this, 11 to 1 p.m. do this. I can't do it like that because I need to look at the week as a whole so that I know day by day kind of what needs to be prioritized. So I open my little calendar and I start first of all, start by recognizing and getting into a routine of like what your doable hours are. So for me, like I said, when I'm time blocking specific hours, I don't have my kids, which are from 6 to 7 a.m. because my husband takes them until 7 a.m. I have 1 hour there. 8:45 to 11:45 in the morning is when they're at preschool or elementary school. So that's 3 hours. And then I have them from 11:45 when I leave to go pick them up until 2:30. And then from 2:30 to 4 is when they all 3 go down for either nap or quiet time. So I have an hour and a half there. So 1 hour from 6 to 7 a.m., 3 hours in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon, which gives me a total of 5.5 hours per day that I time block out. So the first thing I do is I go in my calendar, I write down anything that is an obligation. So we're looking at scheduled interviews, appointments, leading my church group on Sunday night, anything like that that's like somewhere I have to be, right? Those go on my calendar first. Second, I choose my priority in terms of things that are flexible, like all the things I need to get done this week. So second, my priority always is my work hours for my boss, right? So my 12 hours that I get done for my part-time job, those are the priority. So again, know yourself. So I know that Mondays and Fridays I'm spent. Mondays, I'm trying to get back in the routine of the week, and I'm usually really exhausted from the weekend. And by Fridays, I'm burnt out. So I put heavier hours for Tracy, for my boss, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday usually. So maybe I'll schedule 1 hour on Monday during quiet time and like 2.5 on Tuesday, maybe 4 hours Wednesday, 3 hours Thursday, and like an hour and a half Friday, whatever. At the end of the day, I'm going through and I'm writing down these hours and I'm doing the math to make sure I end up with 12 hours by the end of the week. Then the third thing I'll do is my next thing on my priority list. So the first thing, like I said, is you write down your obligations of places you have to be. Second is then you build in what's your first thing you need to accomplish. To me, 12 hours a week. Third, I need to do reel batching. So those are, I have to make 6 reels a week. Essentially, in the summer, I'm doing it a little differently, but I'm going to tell you what this looks like during the school year, because that's kind of, like I said, the summer I'm just using a checklist to get by. But reels, I need daylight. So that's why that's a priority to do during these hours during the day. And so I tend to schedule batching my reels. In other words, I'm making video, and reels are important to me for my business, by the way, because they're marketing for this podcast that you're listening to. So I batch them all mostly on Monday morning. I might have to schedule an hour here or there throughout the week to do a couple more if I don't get to them all on Monday, depending on how fast my creative juices are flowing and that kind of thing. But I will video those and plan them out on Monday in the morning, because that doesn't take as much brain space for me as working for Tracy. The creativity I need to do the work that's required of that job. And so Monday mornings, when I know I don't want to do that for Tracy, I will put in my reels and do that on Mondays. So then the third thing that is important to me, or the fourth thing, right? So first, obligations. Second, work. Third, reels. Fourth, I need to work out. So then I will put that in. And I usually have it scheduled out Monday, Wednesday, Friday from like 11 to 11:45 a.m., like right before I go pick up the kids from school. But there might be a week where I have an interview that morning, and so it kind of throws off my schedule, or there's something that we're on a deadline for Tracy, and I need to like do more work on Monday and Tuesday. So my workouts have to happen Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in a row. So as long as it's 3 days a week, I don't care if they're spread out or right next to each other. I just got to get it done for my own mental health. So I schedule my 45 minutes of a workout in there. And then the very last thing I put in is editing and recording or any extra work I need to do for paring down. Not because paring down is not important to me, but because doing this podcast is really easy for me. I love it. So like I said, the reason I time block is because I don't want to work at night. I also don't want to work on weekends. I need my rest and recovery time, and time blocking makes it so that I'm not like trying to catch up at night and weekends, because I wasted my days when I had more energy, because I have more energy during the days. I want to be productive during the waking hours and let myself rest and truly kind of sign off on nights and weekends. That said, if I run out of time in my time blocking for the week, then I don't mind if my recording a podcast or editing falls into a night or weekend, because it's, to me, the least of a mental load. I enjoy it the most. And so that's why it's the last thing I put into my calendar. But usually I do get it done during the working hours, especially during the school year. Okay, so let's take a look at an example from my own planner. I'm going to look back at like April of this year. It's just the page I turned to. By the way, I'm sorry if you can hear my kids singing Taylor Swift in the other room. Sounds like they're having a good time with the babysitter now. And I'm like, girl, do whatever you need to do to survive. My listeners don't mind hearing a little Taylor in the background, do you? Do you? No, you don't. Okay, here we go. So April. On Monday, it was 9 to 9:30 a.m. I needed to do module planning for the masterclass that I was doing. 9:30 to 11, I was prepping for, it looks like, a podcast interview. Yep. 9:30, 11, prep for podcast interview. I'm not sure why I spent an hour and a half doing that, but I'm sure I had good reason. Usually my podcast prep, I only leave an hour. But Anyways, and then 11 to 11:45 that morning was working for Tracy, getting 45 minutes in there. 2:30 and then I had that break because I have the kids. Then 2:30 to 4 p.m. was all work for Tracy. And then that night I had to do more. It looks like I went back in at the end of the week and realized, not at the end of the week, but at the end of my time blocking, I realized I didn't have enough time to get everything done during the day hours. But again, this is because I was putting together a masterclass at this point. So I was taking on extra work. So that night at 7:30, I had an interview that we had to record for the masterclass, and I needed to prep my podcast, which releases on Tuesday mornings. So that was my Monday. Tuesday morning, I post my own reel from 6 to 6:30 a.m. I did that on Monday too. But then I also post for Tracy that day. So from 6:30 to 7 doing posts for hers, 9 to 11 a.m. reels, 11 to 11:45 Tracy work, 2:30 to 4 p.m. more Tracy work. So I did heavy on Tracy that Tuesday. The next morning, same thing, posting in the morning from 6 to 7 a.m., 9 to 11 a.m., meeting, 11 to 11:45 workout, 2:30 to 4 p.m. work. Thursday, 9 to 9:30 a.m. was my workout. So I had to do it earlier because 9:30 to 11:45 I had to do work specifically in that time frame. I don't remember why. 2:30 to 4 p.m. work. So you see what I mean? It's really simple. It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's just I'm literally writing out when I'm doing things so that I am not wasting my time while the kids are at school falling into an Instagram hole. Friday, 6 to 7 a.m. posting again for myself and Tracy. And then that morning I had more hours free because I went heavy on my Tracy hours earlier in the week. And so I put down checklist items or edit dad's reel. My dad was on the podcast, work on the kid guide that I was making at the time. And then from 2:30 to 4 p.m. I worked for Tracy. So that is what that week looked like. Again, it sounds a little bit chaotic and it's really simple. I literally just wrote down the hours that I was doing certain things. But if I don't, then the whole week I'd be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get 12 hours in for Tracy and get this interview done and edit my dad's podcast? And right, like it just starts feeling really overwhelming. But when it's written on paper, I'm like, oh, I have time to do all this. Like I don't have to think, when am I going to work out? I know I'm going to work out at this certain time. I think the number one question that people have when it comes to time blocking is like, well, what if you say you're going to be prepping for the podcast from 9 to 9:30, but then it goes until 9:45 and then your whole time blocking gets messed up. Time blocking, first of all, should have margin in between your blocks of time. I always leave a little bit of margin. It's, for example, this morning even, I time blocked out this morning because I do have a babysitter today. So again, no kids that are my responsibility. I can time block out my hours. I had an interview on a different podcast this morning as to be a guest. I needed to record this one and prep for this one and write down what I wanted to say to you guys. And I also needed to get an hour of work in for Tracy. And that all had to happen in a very condensed period of time. So I time blocked it out. However, my interview with the guest podcast went longer than expected. But I have left enough margin, like even just like 10 or 15 minutes here and there, that yes, I don't have time now to drive to Starbucks. I wanted to get my hour of work for Tracy done at Starbucks. I don't have the 10 minutes to get to Starbucks and the 10 minutes to get home, that extra 20 minutes, if I want to be able to complete what I need to do. However, if I just stay home, work from bed while I listen to my kids torture the babysitter, I can get everything done still, even though we went over on the time. So just add a little bit of margin in, even if it's 10 minutes in between things you want to do. That's also important because sometimes your brain needs time to reset. And so it's important to do that. And if you're thinking 10 minutes between tasks is still way too productive, keep in mind as well that the reason I'm able to do a more productive morning is because it is such a limited time. Like I'm resting in the evenings. I am resting on weekends. When I'm with my kids, I am not stressed out trying to get things done. I'm just going through my checklist like willy-nilly. I do it. I do my checklist, but I'm not stressed out about it, right? So I can work for 3 hours straight in the morning and be productive because I know the rest is coming. If you are trying to be this productive, your entire 12-hour day or 14-hour day that you are up and at it, then you're going to burn out, right? Or you can just choose to time block the periods of time that you can be productive in order to gain that margin, right? can enjoy my show at night, or I can read my book at night. People are like, how do you have time to read and do everything you do? Because I concentrate my hours. I do my time blocking. I am not on my phone. I'm not on an Instagram whole, like, wasting time when I don't have my kids around. I am productive, and that way I can relax. I do get to have that margin that we all really, really want in our lives. And then it's a snowball effect, right? When I have that margin, I'm well rested. I feel better. I have more energy to be productive when I have my time blocked hours. Yeah, so that's kind of time blocking in a nutshell, how it looks for my life. I hope that it's helpful for you. Again, like I said, I know that our schedules are different. Some of you are stay-at-home moms. You might be like, I can't time block when my kids are around, but maybe you want to time block out those, hey, I'm going to vacuum at 9 o'clock this morning, or some of these household tasks that I don't personally, time block out. Or maybe you want to use it at work and you're literally like, I am here from whatever, 9 to 5, and I'm overwhelmed by trying to get everything done at work. So you can just write down what you need to do specifically. I use a checklist for me at work. I have a prioritized checklist, so I don't time block out when I'm working for Tracy. And let's say I time blocked 2 hours to work for her on Wednesday morning. I don't then time block within that. I just use a checklist and get as much done as I can in those 2 hours. But if you want to time block specifically for work, I think that's great too. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you can use time blocking however would help you feel less overwhelmed. The idea is that you are not holding all of this in your brain being like, I don't know how I'm going to get everything done. You're going to get it on paper. You're going to brain dump it out. You're going to schedule it out. And then you can just go into your week not stressed because you know exactly what you're doing and when, and that everything you need to do is going to get done. And you're going to have time to rest. Boom. All right. Love you guys. I do. I really do love you guys. I know it sounds weird to say that to the air because I'm not technically talking to anyone but my face on a screen right now. But I read the reviews and they're amazing, and the feedback online, and just knowing from you guys it's just, I love you. It really means a lot to me to be able to have this space and talk about something that I really think is helpful and important for all of us. And the feedback you give is amazing. And the ideas you give. I mean, gosh, I am certainly not perfect at paring down my life or paring down my home or my schedule, and you guys offer ideas constantly to me, and I love it. I soak it up. So anyways, thanks for being here. Love you so much. See you next week. You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face, so thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at Paring Down Podcast, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.